Imagine witnessing a doctor torturing his patient. He inserts long, thin silver needles into him. Not one, not two, dozens, directly into his back, his legs, his arms. Yet the person sits without screaming or struggling, staring blankly, as if it's perfectly normal. Barbaric? Uncivilized? That's exactly what young Dutch physician Willem ten Rijn thought when he first saw it. It was 1674, and he was the only European doctor on the tiny island of Dejima, in a Japan completely closed off from the world. Everything he learned at Leiden University, all the Latin, anatomy, and humoral theory, screamed that what he was witnessing was utter madness. Yet the Japanese man, pricked with needles like a pincushion, didn't appear to be suffering. He looked calm, and this baffling, frightening procedure wasn't punishment, it was treatment. Treatment was common practice everywhere back then. In Europe, where our Dutchman hailed from, medicine was loud and often bloody. A headache? The doctor would take a sharp lancet, incise a vein at the bend of the elbow, and thick, dark blood would drain into a copper basin. A pint, sometimes two. The patient would grow pale and weak, but everyone believed that the ailment itself departed along with the bad blood. If that didn't help, dozens of slimy leeches would be applied, or a mixture so potent it would turn one inside out. All the science of that era rested on a single, simple idea. Some poison had accumulated inside the person, and it needed to be expelled immediately. Through pain, weakness, or screams, it didn't matter how. And this wasn't considered barbarism. According to textbooks, this was how kings and paupers alike were treated by the brightest minds of the time. This was the true, proper medicine of the 17th century. And so, on this tiny patch of land, an artificial island the size of a football field, young Willem found himself trapped. He wasn't merely a traveler. He was the chief physician of the Dutch trading post. His duty was to ensure that the handful of merchants and sailors confined there didn't succumb to fever. He was confident in his abilities, with his Leiden diploma in his pocket and the finest instruments in his medical bag. But one day, one of his patients, a robust sailor, was struck down by agonizing stomach pain that wouldn't subside for weeks. Willem tried everything. He bled the sailor until he nearly lost consciousness. He administered emetics. He applied cupping glasses. Yet the pain clung to the man like a ship's anchor, refusing to release its grip. It was then, looking at his countryman's face, gray with suffering, that Willem first thought of those needles, not with revulsion, but with desperate curiosity. His own science, grand and correct as it was, proved powerless. He swallowed his pride, his diploma, his entire scientific worldview. He went to the Japanese interpreter and, stammering with shame and desperation, asked him to summon that very physician with the needles. Soon, a short old man arrived. He wore no medical gown, carried no instruments in a bag. In his hands was only a small silk cushion, bristling with needles as thin as hair, made of silver and gold. He didn't check the pulse or ask to see the tongue. He simply ran his fingers over the groaning sailor's abdomen, finding points whose existence Willem had never suspected. Then he took a needle. With a light, almost imperceptible motion, he twisted it into the skin. The sailor flinched. Willem held his breath, expecting a scream, but there was no scream. The old man inserted a second needle, a third, and suddenly, the sailor, who had been writhing in pain for weeks, exhaled, deeply, audibly, like a person finally released from a vice. Willem watched, and an entire world crumbled in his mind. All his European medicine had proven useless, and some old man, without a single Latin book, had simply pricked him with a needle, and the pain was gone. Willem didn't sleep that night. It wasn't about humiliation. He was a doctor to his core and didn't believe in miracles. He believed in what could be seen, touched, and most importantly, recorded. The very next day, he sought out the old man again. Through the interpreter, he began his interrogation. Where does it hurt? Where do you prick? Why here, and not a finger width to the left? The old man spoke of some life force, of invisible channels in the body. To Willem, it sounded like a fairy tale, but he set aside all the whys and focused on the hows. He took out paper and a quill and began to sketch. Here's a point on the arm, for headaches. This one, on the leg, for stomach pain. He wasn't trying to understand. He was simply copying. Day by day, he transformed from a physician into a student, tracing hieroglyphs without knowing their meaning. He was creating Europe's first map of foreign, incomprehensible, yet astonishingly effective knowledge. 2 years later, he disembarked in Amsterdam. His chests held something more valuable than silk, notebooks filled with precise handwriting and dozens of drawings. He believed he was bringing home a treasure, a cure for hundreds of ailments. He presented them to his alma mater, Leiden University, laying them before the gray-bearded professors and recounting his story. He spoke of the old man, of the needles, of pain that vanished in seconds. In return, he met with cold, mocking eyes. Invisible channels? What life force are you speaking of? Is this pagan nonsense? He was ridiculed. The Amsterdam College of Surgeons, whose income depended directly on bloodletting and costly mixtures, issued an angry pamphlet, branding him a charlatan. Influential officials, hearing of this godless treatment, threatened him with legal action. For he wasn't merely proposing something new, he was, in essence, telling all of them, the gray-haired and respected, that their entire science, all their lancets and leeches, were a cruel mistake, and they did not forgive such affronts. The man who brought a remedy for pain to Europe became its biggest headache, and Willem fell silent. He stopped attending scholarly councils. He stopped trying to prove anything to the boisterous barber surgeons. Why bang your head against a wall that refuses to listen? He retreated to his study, among books and vials, spread his Japanese notebooks on the table, and took up his pen once more. But now, he wasn't addressing the living. He was writing for those yet unborn. Year after year, he translated his notes into precise Latin, the only language science truly respected. He gave this barbaric, in their view, treatment a name that any European would understand: acupuncture, derived from the Latin words acus, needle, and punctura, a prick. And in 1683, his book was printed, a thick, leather-bound volume. It contained no fairy tales about life force, only body maps, precise drawings, and a dry description. If it hurts here, prick here. He didn't win the battle. He simply left behind a weapon that would one day find its warrior, and the book was published. And nothing happened. Hundreds of copies circulated to Europe's finest libraries, taking their place on shelves alongside weighty treatises on the benefits of bloodletting, and there they gathered dust, a thick, dense layer of dust for a full 100 years. All that time, while his work lay dormant, doctors in white wigs continued to cut veins, cauterize ulcers with hot irons, and prescribe concoctions made from crushed skulls. No one opened that strange volume with its illustrations of figures marked with incomprehensible lines. Before him, Europe didn't know that pain could simply be extinguished, like a candle flame. After him, it received detailed instructions on how to do so, but it simply refused to read them. He gave them a treasure map, yet they continued to dig holes in their own gardens, convinced that was the only place to find anything. The knowledge had been delivered, but the world was not ready for it. As for Willem ten Rijn himself, he returned to Holland and lived a long, quiet life. He treated townspeople for coughs and fevers. He delivered babies, and he never again tried to prove to anyone that pain could be turned off with a needle. He had understood one simple truth. The most powerful weapon isn't the one you use to win an argument. It's the one you silently leave for others. He didn't try to smash through the wall of misunderstanding with his head. He simply took the key to a door in that wall from his pocket, placed it on the ground, and walked on. Sooner or later, someone would pick up that key.